Welcome to This Explainer. Look, today we're not just talking about some trendy new app or a cool software update. We are unpacking something massive, a sweeping, cinematic view of human civilization being fundamentally restructured right before our eyes. Through the lens of Oxford economist Daniel Susskind's book, Future Minds, we're going to explore what actually happens when the very foundations of how we think, how we work, and how we govern are completely rewritten. So let's dive right in.
I want you to really sit with this question for a second. What happens when intelligence stops being scarce? For literally thousands of years, our main economic bottleneck was purely physical. We needed raw muscle to harvest crops, to build cities, just to survive. Human intelligence, on the other hand, has always been the ultimate scarce resource. I mean, it takes 2 decades and thousands of calories a day just to grow and educate a single human brain. But what if that scarcity just vanishes?
And that brings us to Susskind's brilliant central thesis. Think about it. Because valuable cognition has always belonged exclusively to us humans, our entire world, our economy, our schools, our jobs, is completely built on the baseline assumption that smarts are hard to come by. But AI shatters that assumption entirely. Suddenly, intelligence is abundant. It's highly scalable, it's cheap, and it's perfectly distributable. The historical chain that linked high-level thought to biological brains, it's breaking right in front of us.
Let's look closer at this in Section 1, the end of scarcity. You know, just like a physicist unpacks the laws of the universe, we can actually unpack the mechanics of our own society. Back during the Industrial Revolution, machines amplified human muscles. We built massive engines to lift heavy iron and tractors to plow vast fields. But the AI era targets something entirely different. It targets general cognitive work. It amplifies our minds. We aren't just replacing the tractor anymore. We are literally beginning to replace the engineer who designed the tractor in the first place.
Moving right along to Section 2, Intelligence as Infrastructure.
Susskind throws this absolutely mind-bending concept at us: intelligence as infrastructure. Think about electricity for a moment. Before we had the power grid, generating your own energy was isolated, expensive, and incredibly hard. Now, you just plug a cord into a wall. Susskind argues that intelligence is undergoing that exact same transition. Instead of relying on a few highly educated humans, organizations are just going to plug into a global cognitive grid on demand. Expertise is no longer scarce, and it's no longer uniquely human.
So what we get is this staggering democratization of expertise. Elite knowledge, trained on basically the sum of all global data, is suddenly embedded into simple, everyday interfaces. A teenager sitting in a basement can now access the equivalent of a Harvard medical or legal reasoning system in seconds. But, and here is the real twist, while capability is democratizing for the masses, the actual underlying power is centralizing faster than ever before.
Which immediately forces us to ask a pretty heavy Socratic question. Who actually controls the systems where all this intelligence flows? I mean, these foundation models aren't just fun consumer apps. They are the new geopolitical infrastructure. They require massive compute, staggering amounts of energy, and immense capital. So who decides what these models optimize for? Whose cultural blind spots are being permanently baked into our new global cognitive grid?
And that leads us directly into Section 3, the cognitive divide.
I want you to consider the sheer terrifying power of the number 1. Because intelligence amplification, it compounds. Here's the harsh reality Susskind points out. If you already possess elite education, institutional power, and vast capital, and you take all those advantages and plug them into this new AI infrastructure, your capabilities don't just take a little step forward. They accelerate exponentially. You launch light years ahead of the rest of humanity, creating a singular, massive concentration of power.
And what that creates is an entirely new paradigm of inequality. In the old human labor era, the dividing line was basically wealth and physical property, right? Society actually needed you as an essential laborer just to function. But in the AI era, the new dividing line is cognitive leverage. The role of the everyday citizen shifts from being totally essential to being fundamentally dependent on complex black box AI systems that they neither understand nor control.
So ask yourself right now, can our 19th century laws seriously govern 21st century supercognition? It's literally like we're trying to fly a hyper-advanced spaceship using an instruction manual meant for a horse-drawn carriage. The mismatch between the blistering speed of technological evolution and our sluggish, slow-moving human bureaucracy is just staggering.
Which brings us to Section 4, when institutions fail. We are seeing the symptoms of this institutional lag everywhere we look. Universities are letting students take on massive debt to train for professions that AI is actively automating away. Governments are trying to regulate technologies they barely even understand. Our legal systems are completely clueless about who to sue when an algorithm makes a fatal error. And history warns us, right? When economic realities transition faster than institutions can adapt, the result is usually extreme polarization, populism, and profound societal chaos.
And this hits on the psychological core of Susskind's whole analysis. He writes, "The danger is not simply poverty. The deeper risk is loss of social meaning. Really think about why we work. Yes, obviously for survival and a paycheck. But work also gives us our identity, our community, and quite frankly, a reason to wake up in the morning. If AI can perform cognitive tasks better than we can, it isn't just about losing that paycheck. It's about losing our economic relevance entirely."
Let's explore how we navigate that in Section 5, Redefining Human Purpose.
For basically our entire evolutionary history, cognitive effort was the key to our survival. It determined our social status. We've always equated human achievement with being economically productive. But what happens when machines are simply better, faster, and smarter at producing that value? If intelligence is no longer our unique domain, how do we even define our worth?
Susskind suggests that in a world just saturated with machine intelligence, we are going to have to actively rediscover what it actually means to be human. And hey, maybe it's a good thing we won't have to grind through endless spreadsheets anymore. Instead, we're going to have to pivot. We'll need to focus on art, relationships, wisdom, ethics, and care. For decades, we've kind of treated these things as secondary hobbies compared to pure economic output. But in the future, these deeply subjective, uniquely human experiences have to become our primary sources of meaning.
Because for thousands of years, intelligence and humanity were tightly braided together. You literally couldn't have one without the other. But now, those threads are uncoupling. The real disruption here isn't just that a robot might take your job. The true disruption is a complete civilizational redefinition. We are now tasked with building a society that is actually capable of surviving the detachment of intelligence from the biological human brain.
As we close out today's explainer, I want to leave you with a question that isn't really about economics at all. It's about your very identity in the 21st century. When intelligence becomes completely abundant, when the machines can easily outthink us, outwrite us, and outanalyze us, what remains uniquely valuable about you? I'll let you ponder that. Thank you so much for exploring the future with me today.